He is one of the smartest legal minds I've ever encountered in my 40 years as a journalist. Our good friend, Mike Davis from the Article 3 Project is here now. Mike, good to have you on.
Thank you, John, for having me.
All right. Give us a level set. There are maybe almost 20 injunctions, if I'm doing my math right. And some of them are keeping the president from doing things that I think the Constitution says he can do, right?
Yeah, President Trump campaigned on the fact he's going to hire Elon Musk. He's going to set up the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. He's going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. He's going to secure our border, and he's going to deport illegal aliens, all of whom are criminals, with particular focus on Tren de Aragua and MS-13 terrorists. And President Trump is doing the unthinkable. He's actually doing what he promised American voters he would do after they gave him a broad electoral mandate, 312 electoral votes, all 7 swing states, the popular vote. He kept the House. He won a comfortable margin in the Senate. And so these Democrats have nowhere to run except for their Democrat activist judges who are not exercising judicial review. They are exercising judicial sabotage of the president's core Article 2 constitutional powers. President Trump is not stealing legislative powers from Congress under Article 1. He's not stealing the Supreme Court's judicial power under Article 3. He's exercising his core Article 2 powers to protect our country from an invasion, to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, and to make sure that he's faithfully executing the laws. And these activist judges are issuing these illegal temporary restraining orders that are not temporary at all. They do not follow the rules requiring the posting of a bond. And the problem is that the Supreme Court on Good Friday has gone weak and has allowed this to continue. The Supreme Court, for the first time ever, I think, because this is totally unconstitutional, has an injunction that's still pending on the president of the United States, which you can't do. You can have injunctions. You can have an injunction on lower officers. You cannot have an injunction on the president. And this injunction deals with the commander-in-chief's power to conduct military operations to expel terrorists. This is lawless. This is cowardice. This is dangerous.
It is perplexing to me because there's a moment before that Good Friday ruling that where it seemed to me like the Supreme Court spoke with some clarity for a few seconds, because they told Judge Boasberg you had no right to take that case from Texas and move it to D.C. so you could be king and jury and judge on this. And 2, we've already ruled on the Alien Enemies Act, and we said a president could do this absent a habeas corpus. So it sent one message pretty profoundly to all judges, starting with Judge Boasberg. And then a few days later, it stops the president from doing the very thing they told Judge Boasberg he had the right to do. Why do you think the flip? Is there some politics here? You said going weak. That might really be what happened, right? They just went weak.
Look, these 7 justices are not following the Constitution, and they're not following the law. This is cowardice. This is lawless. This is dangerous. You have Commanding General John Roberts and his 6 lieutenant generals who think they can enjoin the president when he's exercising commander-in-chief power. This is lawless. This is dangerous. This is reckless. And I would say to these judges that, remember, illegal aliens do not have constitutional due process rights. The illegal aliens only have due process rights provided by Congress through statute. And if you look at the Alien Enemies Act, there's not due process. The president can repel an invasion, both as commander-in-chief under Article 2 and under the Alien Enemies Act. And I would also say to these judges that you wear robes, not capes. Your job is an important job. It's a modest job, but it's an important job. Judges decide cases and controversies of the parties properly before the court with redressable claims. Nothing more, nothing less. It's their job to do that in their judicial robes. It's not to put on capes and think that they are narcissistic superheroes who get to fly around and save people, like what they did on Good Friday. They did this ruling before the district court rules, before the appellate court rules, before the Solicitor General even filed a brief with the Supreme Court. They didn't have jurisdiction. They used the All Writs Act to do this, and it sabotaged the president. There is still an injunction on the president several weeks later. This is unconstitutional, what they've done. And so if the Supreme Court justices think they're narcissistic superheroes in capes instead of judges in robes, if the Chief Justice, demanding General John Roberts, refuses to get his judicial house in order, Congress has to step up and get that judicial house in order for them.
Yeah, that's really the key thing here, which is that Congress could act with some haste, bring the third branch of government in and bring absolute clarity to this, except that it doesn't seem like Republicans are in too much a hurry. They had a nice long Easter break, and then they kind of came back and they're ho-humming it to start. But the House passed a piece of legislation that at least said federal judges can't do nationwide injunctions from a single district. The Senate, other than Chuck Grassley making some proposals, hasn't really done much. What will it take to get some giddy up in Congress to get some clarity from Congress on the table for the Supreme Court?
Well, I think Congress needs people with backbone. And so I'm going to work with members of the House and Senate who have backbone through the Article 3 project to bring much needed reforms to the federal judiciary. Like you said, Darrell Issa has a bill where you have to have Article 3 standing in order to bring these cases. You can only give relief to the parties before the court. You cannot give nationwide injunctions to non-parties that are not before the court, because that's not Article 3 judicial power. That's legislative power that belongs to Congress. And so that needs to happen. The Supreme Court allowed this new D.C. federal judge, Ali, who brags he's the first Muslim and Arab D.C. federal judge. He just got jammed through in December in the lame duck session, barely got through after the Democrats lost the White House and the Senate. They jammed this radical judge through. He's still a Canadian citizen. I don't know how Judge Ali or any federal judge can still be a foreign citizen and not renounce your foreign citizenship before you take a judgeship. He's still a Canadian citizen, and he forced the president to spend $2 billion in foreign aid at USAID before the president could do a national security review to make sure, for example, we're not funding Hamas terrorists who are killing Americans under the guise of Gaza humanitarian relief. And so the Supreme Court allowed this to happen. So what Congress needs to do is take that $2 billion that Judge Ali pissed away and sent to his Hamas buddies. Congress needs to take that right out of the federal judiciary's $10 billion annual budget. So they should get a 20% cut in their next annual budget to make up for the $2 billion that Judge Ali sent out the door. So they need to do funding cuts. They need to do aggressive oversight. They need to impeach the most lawless and dangerous judges, like D.C. Obama Judge Jeb Boasberg, who opened up his courtroom on a Saturday when it wasn't even his docket and exposed an ongoing military operation, putting American and allied lives in grave danger, illegally ordering planes to turn around. This is madness by these activist judges, and Congress needs to stop being wimps. They need to step up. They need to get the judiciary in order. That's their constitutional duty in Congress.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, and we'll see if the courage exists there. There's a lot of talk, but the action often trails the talk by a few miles. We'll see what happens. I want to look forward to the next few weeks. The ICE detainers, the ICE arrests are going to step up. Will we see more judges like the judge we saw in Milwaukee who think it's their job to protect criminals from being arrested rather than enforce the law against those criminals?
Well, judges are not above the law. So if judges are harboring illegal immigrants, they're going to be charged under federal criminal statutes for harboring illegal immigrants. And I would say this to judges who think they're going to sabotage the president's immigration agenda. What President Trump and his immigration team need to do is, okay, if you want to have due process for defending our Constitution or under the Alien Enemies Act, let's house these terrorists in, say, Chevy Chase, Maryland, where these Supreme Court justices live. Put them in tents, maybe in the Chevy Chase Country Club, turn that into an illegal migrant tent camp, and then give these illegal immigrant terrorists day passes to go work during the day around Chevy Chase, Maryland. And let's just see how long these justices want due process for these terrorists.
Martha's Vineyard brought to the D.C. suburbs. It worked in Martha's Vineyard, so we'll see. Yeah, that's a really unique idea and something that needs to be thought through. It's a really amazing. Mike, for folks who love the great work, you do such amazing work at the Article 3 Project. What's the best way for folks to stay in touch with you personally and the great work of the project?
I really appreciate it, John. It's article3project.org. Article number 3project.org. Follow us on social media, donate, but only what you can afford. And the most important thing your audience can do is take action, action, action.
I check it every day. It's such a great newsy site. We're so lucky to have your voice in this incredible moment of debate in American history. Mike, always an honor to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.